Welcome back to Jams Automotive. AJ's pretty much already put the engine in. What we learned in this process, even though we watched some videos on YouTube also, we learned that this part of the, you can raise the camera up a little bit, show this part. We had to take off the, he had to take off the master cylinder, brake booster and all this. Of course, we're going to have to go back in and tighten all these lines back up, but he's been connecting stuff. Thing is, when you put an engine back in, it's good to button everything up, and then from there on just go back and tighten lines here, check all your wiring. The videos that AJ has done on it wasn't the rear main seal, crank seal. It was a seal that's I guess separates the engine oil from just splashing everywhere in the transmission. That's what it was. What did it take? It took AJ pretty much from a Monday to up to this date, taking it out, putting it back in. But this engine can come out from the top. A lot of people will go out with it through the bottom, but it can come out from the top transmission and all. And not only is this for a Pontiac, this is also for the Chevrolet Lumina, Monte Carlos, with this series engine, a 3800 series engine. AJ, in your process of taking it out, do you think that we did everything right and put everything back in?
I mean, as far as from the steps that we took, as like I said, taking off the master cylinder and stuff like that, that's pretty much the only major thing in the computer out of the box, of the air cleaner box. The computer is mounted inside the air cleaner box, so you wouldn't notice unless you took the top off. But removing those two things, it helped the motor come from the top. A lot of people try to buy some time and not want to mess with the booster and the master cylinder just because they don't want to touch it. They're afraid to release the pressure out of the brake system, but it's really not that bad when you have the bleeder valves up on top of the master cylinder. They either have a kit or you can just do it the old-fashioned way and just have somebody pumping it while you're bleeding them. But like I said, just that and the computer out of the air cleaner box, and then that's pretty much it. That's the only thing that was in the way of the motor coming out from the top. A lot of people, they look at it and they're like, oh shit, that ain't going to come out because of that and that. Well, it's a lot easier, I think, to take that out than to lift the car up 6 feet in the air when you do not have a lift. I mentioned in one of my other videos we didn't have a lift. So doing it by yourself, this is the easiest way, is coming out the top.
Yes. As far as the front of the car, electric fans, all this stayed in place. It didn't crush nothing, because as you're picking the engine up out of here, it itself pivots from the weight of the transmission. It pivots itself where it's easy to come out and head out that way. What did we use? We just used a regular old engine hoist, a hydraulic engine hoist, and it did right. It pivoted itself and it went out towards that passenger side, and we just scooted it back. And of course, in the process, putting it back in, well, it's just the procedure of taking it out. Everything goes back the way putting it back in. The CV joints now will go back in. We do notice that we're going to have to put brake and brake pads. But in the process of pulling out the CV joints, we went on ahead and checked the hub bearings. Hub bearings in these vehicles are notorious on drying up and cracking. Hub bearings on this look real good. I mean, we'll go back in and grease what we can, but they're pretty much what they call Teflon sealed hub bearings. So there's no greasing wheel bearings in these cars like the old cars. Just like AJ was saying, pretty much your filter box, this had to get removed. Fuse box over there, all he did was really loosen it and kicked it out of the way. It's got enough extension, as you can see the way he's doing it right now. It has enough slack to where you'll have room for the engine to come up. When the engine was coming up, we thought the filter,
Oil filter.
it's not a vertical, it's a horizontal filter. In other words, it's laying in sideways, because this car has an internal pump, and it pumps from inside, not from your filter. And we thought that was going to be a problem. No, it actually missed by so many inches. That's pretty much it.
For this project anyways.
For this project anyways. Of course, like AJ said, we got to bleed the system. We're going to go back and check everything. There's still some things loose, like this is loose. We'll check all our connections again, make sure everything's right. Only problem that we ran into was some wiring that goes under the motor, under the frame. We couldn't actually get to them and disconnecting them, so what we did was we cut them, but we're going to go back in with the proper bud connectors and static resistors where it won't cause a static or a short in
it was
the wiring
actually
system.
the O2 sensor. The O2 sensor ran underneath the skid plate. They have a skid plate built on this car, and I'd have to take the whole skid plate down and just to get to the O2 sensor. So instead of doing that, just go ahead and splice it right there, next to the power steering pump, and then we'll just go ahead and put them together. So next time when we pull a motor out, like I said in the other video, this motor is going to be beefed up and supercharged. The motor is going to come back out again, and that way we can just quick disconnect it from there, and it'll just be something we can not fight with next time trying to trace it down all the way underneath the motor.
And another problem was the exhaust. We actually broke a bolt and taken the exhaust off of the catalytic, but that's no problem. Tap that out. You can run your bolt and nut, go back with anti-seize lubricant. That way that won't happen, because from the factory they're just going to tighten them up. They're not going to put no anti-seize lubricant. So, I mean, for any little a shade tree mechanic that wants to do something like this and say, well, I don't know, it can't be done. It can be done out through the top. A lot of them will go with the whole frame and drop it, but that's a lot of work. A lot of work. This was easy. This was easy. That's it.